Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions with my co-host Stacie here to talk about Sullivan's Crossing, Season 1, Episode 4, A Rock and a Hard Place. Episode's description reads as follows. Maggie and Cal work against the clock in a daring medical rescue, and in the process discover a clue to the whereabouts of a missing camper. Maggie learns a little more about Cal's past, while Sully receives disturbing news. The episode was written by John Galligan. The episode was directed by T.W. Peacock. This is his second and last directorial stint for the season on this series. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend that you go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please subscribe. You can also head over to my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to our channel. All right, shout-outs this week. One, a sad one. Matthew Perry died recently, a couple days ago, I believe it is. He was, of course, he was Chandler Bing on Friends. He passed away at the age of 54. The other shout-outs, less sad ones, are for Skylar Anderson. The debate has been settled. He is a he, and I'm sure he found that discussion very, very amusing.
Well, hey.
I think he also said that the credits for the Canadian broadcast were the same. As far as who was in them and who wasn't, is the same.
Right.
As whether they're the exact same credits or not, he probably wouldn't be able to tell us. Ashley Wright, I almost forgot what he exactly said, but he was worried about Frank's situation, worried that the other, emergency personnel were going to be off busy doing something else while he was bleeding out.
Yeah, and we get more on that this week.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say about that.
Oh, believe me, so do I. I have a lot to say about this episode in general. A lot of it, unfortunately, critical. Jessica Evans, she is the owner of a From group on Facebook. She also happens to be a Sullivan's Crossing fan.
Yes.
She happened to discover my post on Instagram, which is the first time Instagram has been, all that helpful as in regards to the podcast. Actually, I think we got a few views thanks to you off of that.
Yeah, my Instagram has been more helpful.
Right.
You need to step it up a little.
Yep. I see, you're always better at starting the whole social media thing. You learned how to use Twitter long before I ever did. But yes, she gave me permission to post my links, both Sullivan's Crossing and Quantum Leap, on her page.
On her From group.
Yeah,
and that's the best From group.
Oh, yeah,
by the way,
absolutely.
there are many. We are both members of many of them, and her group is the best one. And that's the group that I actually won the From Trivia Challenge on a couple months ago. Now,
there aren't many groups that you're allowed to post things that don't relate to the subject of the group. So thank you very much for that, Jessica Evans. And if you happen to be listening, you got a shout out. I'll actually be sure to mention that to you when I talk to you on Facebook. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts in this week's episode.
All right, so first thing that I have to bring up, especially since we were just talking about the From group, is the coincidence that the title of this episode,
oh yeah, that's
Rock in a Hard Place,
is
very similar to the episode or the title of also episode 4 of From.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
The 4th episode of From is called A Rock and a Faraway, which is a play on words of the phrase A Rock and a Hard Place. So I found that very interesting that both of these use that for their 4th episode. I don't think that's intentional. I don't think there's any of the same people involved in that end of things.
Right.
But it is fun. Again, if people don't know, these two shows are filmed real close to each other. They've got a lot of the same, background talent, and they also both star Reed Price. And Bob Mann is in both series, so I think that's fun. That's
what pretty much attracted us to Sullivan's Crossing in the first place.
Right.
Is knowing that they were on the show.
First time we'd even heard about this show was from Reed.
So your other thoughts on
okay, so this one felt a little weird, right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
I feel like the first half of this episode was just an extension of last week. Like it should have been part of that episode.
See, it's funny because it's not even the first half of the episode. It's only 15 minutes of it.
And then it's like a different episode.
Right.
So, and even IMDb seems really off. IMDb for this episode, number 4, lists, for example, the gas station attendant and the tribal elder that were in episode 3.
Right.
They're not listed on episode 3's IMDb. They're listed on episode 4's IMDb. I'm wondering if, like, the episodes got cut differently for us than they originally aired, or if they got cut last minute, even, you know, for their Canadian airing and aired differently than how they got reported. I don't know. Something is just weird about these 2 episodes.
Yeah, this episode is what I would call tonally inconsistent with itself. The first 15 minutes is about something else entirely, and then it branches off into this weird other direction, back to this slice of life drama series, low-key, that we've been watching up until this point. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work. All in all, I would say that this was an okay episode. It could have been great if we had spent the entire episode dealing with Frank's life and death situation, dealing with the drama and the emotions of the people involved, as we worry about Frank, as we, you know, feel our feelings and get to know our characters more, and while also dealing with the hostage situation. If that were an entire episode, if this episode had picked a lane, this could have been a great episode.
Yeah.
As it stands, it is merely okay. The fact that they, like, go off on this other tangent definitely hurts this episode big time in my mind. So, yeah, that's where I stand. Anything else that you want to say before we go on?
No, let's just hit the scene by scene.
All right, so the episode begins where we left off. Frank lays unconscious with a gunshot wound. Sully is looking for him, driving, trying to call him on the radio.
Yeah, and remember, everyone else is busy looking for Chelsea, the missing camper.
The EMT girl, which is Connie, calls with the location of where they think Chelsea is, and basically everybody ends up going there.
Yeah, so the cell phone company tracked Chelsea's phone, and we even saw the phone sitting next to Frank. He reaches for it, but he can't move enough to get to it. And that was, you know, them pinging, and they finally got the location, so they must have picked up a signal. Maggie and Cal are closest. They're going to head there. Sully's right behind them.
Frank is really close.
I don't know why. I always want to call Sully Frank.
Yeah, I feel that.
I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. And that's where our credits are. When we come back, Cal and Maggie happen upon Frank. They got there first because they think, and they see his truck and they think that Frank got the call and got there first. That's not the case.
I want to interject a little comment before you move on. Because, I was watching this. I was eating a muffin while I was first watching this. And
Fascinating story. Anyway.
I literally about choked on my muffin laughing. Okay. Let me tell you why. So Connie is having that radio call with everybody, telling them, you know, the position. And she's in the orange rescue truck. Rafe is with her. They were in that orange search and rescue truck together. And she literally says, I'm going to go trade vehicles and get the ambulance in case anybody needs medical attention.
Oh, man.
And I just found that hilarious based on the conversations we've been having about them maintaining all of these different emergency services.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty...
You literally say, I gotta go trade the search and rescue truck for the ambulance. Because if they didn't have to do that, they wouldn't have been so far behind everybody else.
Maybe they should get like an all-purpose truck, like a fire truck with EMT supplies.
What is the search and rescue truck if it also doesn't provide emergency services?
You'd figure some of the same stuff in a search and rescue truck would be in an ambulance as well.
If you're doing search and rescue, you should be expected to provide medical care.
I mean, that's what I would think.
Maybe, you know, they should have split up and each taken one vehicle. Mm-hmm. But I literally started laughing and I almost choked. It was a whole thing.
Well, I'm glad that you survived to tell this tale because it would be very sad to be doing this podcast by myself.
Oh, thank you. Okay, yeah. So as you said, Cal and Maggie got there first. They think that Frank has responded to the call. Like, they haven't noticed Frank's missing, right? They've been so busy with the search.
Cal calls Connie to get the ambulance. Maggie seems kind of panicky. But they end up stopping the bleeding with a credit card and duct tape.
Yeah, Maggie MacGyver over here.
Oh, that's just the beginning of, like, my problems with how they treated Maggie in this episode. Her role in this episode is absurd.
She used the credit card and the duct tape that was actually in Frank's truck.
Right.
Yeah, it was a very MacGyver moment.
So Frank ends up regaining consciousness enough to basically tell Maggie about the stupid guys.
Yeah, he says one word. He says lambda.
Right.
And that was enough for Maggie to realize he's talking about the frat guys that she met at karaoke night. Those idiots, that Rob.
Right.
The name Tom was there. I couldn't find Rob. That Rob, chased off with his baseball bat.
If you're done, if I say you're done, you're done.
And it's a good thing Maggie's got really good memory, better than me, because she remembered that they told her they're staying at a cabin on Route 17. Which is funny that she remembered that, because she was pretty drunk at the time.
Right, yes. Sully ends up there and asks, who did this? And he gets his answer. The ambulance arrives. Sully wants to go with them, but they say he needs to stay there to do something. I guess
they needed him to go back to the camp.
Right.
To let Edna know the situation and to inform the Smiths that their daughter's been kidnapped.
Okay. So I at this point, I'm wondering, okay, why isn't Maggie going with them? Maggie's a doctor.
Right.
She's not the police.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. So Connie and Rafe take Frank to the hospital. I mean, they're doing their job. Fine. But Maggie and Cal leave. And Maggie just says, I don't have time to explain where I'm going.
Right.
You did have time to say that whole sentence. So you could have instead said, I'm following a lead on Chelsea.
Which she should have really just given to the police chief.
Right. Call them. So, okay.
She's a doctor.
They eventually call.
Yeah.
But you should have called right now. I have a lead. Call and tell everybody in the search the lead.
I remind you, she's a doctor,
and instead,
not Rambo.
Instead, she says, I don't have time to explain where we're going.
Right. This whole thing with her is goofy as hell.
I get, that they wanted to go help, but yeah, call in the cavalry.
Yep.
There's this whole radio channel going on looking for Chelsea. Everybody's looking for Chelsea. Get on there. The second you get back in the vehicle and say, I have a lead, we're heading there, everybody head there.
All right, so Maggie and Cal take off. Frank is loaded into the ambulance. Sully returns to the store to tell Edna the bad news. Edna starts freaking out. Sully calms her down. Edna's reaction here is really well done.
Yes.
And this should have been the episode, really, honestly. Her reacting, Sully reacting, everybody reacting to Frank's situation.
Right.
That there's a lot of drama to be mined here. Instead, they just completely drop that and move on. So anyway, moving on. Myself, Cal and Maggie find the gray SUV.
Yep. So they're going through the cabins on Route 17. They see a gray SUV that matches the description.
Why are they even here in the first place? They're on the run. Why don't they just keep going?
They were picking up their shit.
Oh yeah, I guess so. All right. But Cal calls into the police chief guy.
Yeah. So now he calls Tom.
Yeah.
But again, you should have done that before you found the vehicle. As soon as you were headed here, you should have done that. Tom says, don't engage, wait for the police to arrive. But no sooner than they hang up, and they see one of the boys come out, put luggage in the trunk, and Chelsea's backpack that Maggie recognizes. So we got confirmation Chelsea's here, or at least was with them.
Right.
And, of course, Maggie decides to act now. She's not waiting for the police. I mean, you could have, followed them if you wanted to do something.
Right. She's a doctor. I will keep saying this throughout the episode. She is a doctor. Okay. Are you familiar with the term a Mary Sue character?
No.
No? You've never heard that? It's basically a person who just suddenly becomes good at everything without, any training or, any build-up. They're just good at everything. Like Maggie suddenly turning into a police negotiator when she's been a doctor her entire life veers very closely to a Mary Sue character in my mind. I understand that she's the star of the show. They don't need her to do literally everything.
Well, I mean, maybe they do, though, because they apparently don't have enough personnel.
I guess so. But still, this is ridiculous. This is silly. Leave the police stuff to the police. And this episode, Maggie should have gone with Frank and saved Frank's life. Yeah. That's where her role in this episode should have been.
And Cal should have went and joined the police.
Right.
To
As a
give
doctor.
them the tip.
Right. So, but anyway.
Okay, so she gets out, she knocks on the cabin door, and she says her car broke down, she needs to use a phone. She flirts with the guy. We finally learned his name. This is our third time meeting these characters, and we actually got names now. This is the one that's not the shooter. His name is Cliff. He's listed at IMDb as Clifford Carnes, although that wasn't all said in the episode.
Right.
He's played by Peter Shardy, and he's credited in episodes 2 and 4.
Which, when he was actually in 3 as well.
He was in 3 as well, and we couldn't figure out who he was before, because they hadn't named these people. But... yeah, she's going off of the conversation they had at the diner. She's flirting with him. She's like, hey, show me that hot tub you were telling me about. And he offers to give her car a jump. He's trying to get rid of her. But Cal jumps out from behind the building, apprehends him, and he ends up admitting that Chelsea's inside. And
then Maggie starts to interrogate him, but then the other guy comes out with a shotgun. Cal tries to defuse the situation, and this guy's name is Daryl, by the way.
Yep, this is the one who shot Frank. This is Daryl Sexton, and he is played by Ryan Nielsen, and he is listed in episodes 3, 4, and 5. 2, 3, and 4. I don't know why we had such a hard time figuring out who these guys were before, but
yeah,
I think it's just because they didn't tell us their names.
Right.
And there's a lot of people in the show.
So Daryl says he needs to think. Maggie steps in, and eventually he gives up the gun just in time for the police to arrive.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that the timestamp of when this ends is 11 minutes and 25 seconds into this episode. That's where this whole hostage situation ends.
Okay, and then we do get a little more hospital stuff.
Yeah, we do.
After that.
Maggie goes and gets crying Chelsea. And by the way, once she returns to her family, we don't see her for the rest of the episode, which is also goofy. Like, that we should have seen a little bit with them discussing the situation in the aftermath.
Yeah,
but we didn't do that. Okay, so the police captain gives Cal crap. Well deserved, I might add.
Well, Cal and Maggie.
Yeah. Tom gives both of them crap for, like, hey...
I told you, not to do anything.
And they both deserve this, in my mind. But Cal says there was no time to think. And I think he's trying to take a bullet for Maggie here, trying to take the blame for the situation.
Yeah, I mean... if they really thought like they're about to get away forever, sure. But you had a little time. They're packing the car. They weren't even in the car yet.
Mm-hmm.
You could have held out.
Right.
You could have called in another update. They're definitely here. Hurry.
Right. Okay, so they end up taking her back to her family. We see the family reunite. Sully has a weird reaction to this. He seems upset, and he seems to walk away.
Yeah, so...
You think this is further
evidence. Mrs. Smith had said something along the lines of, to Chelsea, I never would have stopped looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
And Sully and Maggie exchanged this look, and it leads me to think that you were right. There's another child involved here, and maybe that child didn't just die. Maybe they went missing.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they were missing for a long time and then died, or maybe they were missing and were never found.
Right. I mean, it kind of has to be along those lines, because if it's just simply Sully, once again, relating to his situation with Maggie, those two don't connect. Those are not equal situations at all.
I definitely think that you were right, suggesting that there is another child involved in this somehow. And this is, I think, the 3rd or 4th time now that we've found some little clue that doesn't really tell us anything, but... once we know, these will be telling things, I think.
So we go to the hospital.
Yeah, so we cut to the hospital, and we'll soon learn it's been a few days.
Right.
It took a while to understand the context of where we are right now.
Gotcha.
Because they don't tell us right now that it's been a few days.
See, I still didn't even get that connection.
So Sully's upset that they wouldn't let him visit Frank.
Right.
Yet he's on his way to visit Frank.
Right.
So... that's the first clue, like, what are you talking about? And what he's saying is they wouldn't let me visit him until now.
Gotcha.
So it's later this day that Maggie and Cal chat, and she's like, I haven't seen you in a few days.
Right.
So it's been days. He's been in the hospital for days with just Edna, and nobody else has been allowed to see him. And that's a weird cut.
It is.
It's a weird cut. The days have passed, and they're a little ambiguous about that time frame at this point.
I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah.
The police captain, Tom, comes out and says Frank isn't pressing charges. It was an accident and not racially motivated. And Sully is basically like, so they're just going to get away with it? And the police captain says, no, they're still facing multiple charges.
Yeah,
including
like
kidnapping. Like, I don't think you have to press charges on that one.
As well as the trespassing and poaching. Right. And I don't know, is it illegal to drink while using a firearm? Like, handling of a firearm. There has to be some law around that.
I mean, it's the other guy mentioned that he was on probation, so that's a parole violation.
Right. So there's plenty of charges, other than the actual shooting, as well as, you know, in addition to the kidnapping, you've got endangerment of a child, because there's guns involved. You've got, I'm sure, something about, you know, holding the gun on Maggie and Cal alone is a charge. So yeah, there's plenty to get them in trouble.
Yeah. The captain gives Maggie crap. Is this a police captain?
He's police.
I mean, he's clearly in charge. But I'm not sure what his rank is.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a chief or a captain or if he's just their local guy. I'm not really sure. But
okay, so anyway,
but this is Tom Canada.
Right. He gives Maggie crap for intervening in the matter, and again, she deserves it.
Yeah, but he's really rough on her because Chelsea. She's like, "Oh, I'm glad Chelsea's okay," and he's like, "You better be glad she's okay because if she died, it would have been your fault."
I mean, yeah, that is how he plays it. But I think she kind of deserves a little bit of crap for like playing Rambo in that situation and not waiting for the actual police.
Sure,
whose job it is.
She should have waited for the police. But also, devil's advocate to your argument, they're the ones who sent Maggie and Cal as part of the search and rescue. They sent them out and said, "You search this quadrant."
All right, but was that before or after this turned into a kidnapping situation?
Well, I mean, nobody knew it was a kidnapping situation yet, but the point is you sent everybody out.
Yeah.
And if you don't want civilians getting involved in police business, you should have more police. You should have more EMTs. You should have more firefighters. Well, you should have more people whose job this is to be involved.
All right, fair enough on that one. But still, like, Maggie should not have tried to have played hostage negotiator there.
No, but she still should get credit for, like, pulling it off.
Yeah.
Like, he sounds like he was about to arrest her.
I don't think he was going to go that far. And later they give, like, him more motivation for being this hard
for the reason he's in a bad mood.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like she kind of deserves to get some crap for what she did. And, yeah, some kudos at the same time,
I mean, okay, if it had been not Maggie. Wow, I'm having such a hard time with these characters' names today. I apologize. If it had been Connie and Rafe that had come across them, would they have got yelled at if they approached?
I don't know. But they also aren't hostage negotiators or police. They are something else entirely.
They're search and rescue.
Yeah, but are they trained for this type of situation? Like, I'm not sure that it would make sense for them to have gotten involved to that extent either. Like, I don't know. I think my problem is really with the setup here more than what the characters actually do. They shouldn't be in these positions to do what they do, if that makes any sense.
Right.
All right, so they go in and see Frank. Edna says he's fine. And by the way, it's now 15 minutes into the episode. The hostage and kidnapping situation and Frank's medical crisis are both resolved at this point.
Yes. So Maggie looks at the chart, says everything looks good. Edna's really concerned he's sleeping a lot. Maggie says that's fine. Why is she even looking at the chart? She does not work at this hospital.
That's the least of my problems. I don't have a problem with Maggie looking at the chart because she is a doctor and she would know how to read the damn thing.
I know, but this isn't her patient to say he's fine.
Well, yeah, all right. But
and Edna doesn't want to leave his side, so we get the impression she hasn't slept at all. She hasn't eaten in days, other than, probably whatever the nurses brought in. Maggie convinces her to step aside, go to the cafeteria, get something to eat. Sully's going to sit with Frank.
And so Sully ends up sitting by his side. Sully, and they have a nice little moment while Frank is unconscious. Sully actually brought him a book, which is nice. I'm not sure he's going to be awake enough to read it. But still, Sully and Mogi.
You're having. I must have wore off.
Yeah, I guess so. Sully and Maggie run into Roy and Lola. Roy is going home. We have some more weird subtext with Lola and Maggie. And Roy ends up leaving the hospital.
Yeah, so Roy's leaving. It was very interesting timing that he's leaving the same time this is happening.
Right.
Roy thanks Maggie for all of her help. Of course, Lola does not, because she would do anything before thanking Maggie for something, right? Maggie offers to stop by later and check on him. Lola refuses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Frank says he's got to get back to the shop because Jackson's looking after it, and who knows how that's going.
Right. Maggie goes into Chandeliers or Shandons. I don't know why that's in my notes. Like
that's what you called it in the first episode.
Okay.
Where do you get chandeliers?
I don't know. I just took a stab in the dark, I think. Okay, so my literal note here is, where the hell has Rob been during, like the last half of the last week's episode to now?
Well, he wasn't at the baseball tournament.
He wasn't at the baseball tournament. He wasn't looking for Chelsea. He wasn't involved in any of the events leading up to this. Why the heck not? And it's been a few days. Shouldn't his sister and the kid be back by now?
Well, we were told it was going to be a few days.
A few days, but he should be back soon.
So,
anyway.
So Rob offers Maggie a open-face hot turkey sandwich, which sounds delicious. I love gravy. Gravy's probably my favorite food group.
Yep.
And, when I heard that muffin that I had eaten just wasn't doing the trick anymore. I was really craving some gravy at that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you get any?
Well, Reed Price told me he'd make me one of those sandwiches.
Well, so I would hold him to that.
We just have to go to Canada to get it, I guess.
Okay. I mean, you could try mailing it to you. It won't be any good, but still. And so
he offered this sandwich on the house.
Did he now?
To Maggie, I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
in the
okay.
show.
I thought you meant to you.
No.
Okay.
Still, none of the businesses in this town are making any money because they literally give everything away.
Yeah. Later, I'll talk about this later, but there's a pretty good indication of why Sully is in the financial shape that he's in. But so this is where it's revealed that Connie and Tom are splitting up. Maggie ends up wondering if maybe that is why he was so hard on her. And I think, once again, I kind of think he was that hard on her because she deserved to be that hard on. I don't think I said that right, but that's okay. Maggie calls her boyfriend, but he can't talk. Surgery and all that. Okay, this entire subplot is just...
Okay, so... He's standing in a stairwell. Yeah. Oh, and I do want to point out that there was a level 2 sign behind him, which reminded me an awful lot of our current From situation.
Yep.
And he says, I gotta go. I'm going into surgery. I don't feel like I bought that.
You thought there was another reason you didn't want to talk to her?
I feel like he was avoiding talking to her. And I don't know if, that's something to pick up on, or if the scene was just not filmed well. But he was, in a stairwell, and he's like, yeah, I'm coming. Was there somebody else there? It didn't look like there was somebody else there.
I don't know what the deal with that is.
It felt insincere to me. And I don't know if it was supposed to or not.
I mean, the entire subplot is just kind of strange.
Yeah.
Especially, we're going off into some other tangent for this episode after dealing with the first 15 minutes. And even with that in mind, the Andrew stuff seems weird.
I mean, the whole reason they gave her a boyfriend is so they can split them up, obviously.
Right.
Because the whole point of this show is so that we can ship Maggie and Cal, and they wanted to have some drama in there, so they gave her a boyfriend that she's clearly not invested in.
But she still called him in this moment.
She did, yeah. And also, she asked Rob where Sydney is. Mm-hmm. I guess she's having a hard time keeping up with the plot, too, because Sydney's at the baseball tournament.
Right. I'm pretty sure she was aware that they even talked about it. In the last episode, there was a scene where she said where she was going.
And that she was going to be gone for days.
Right.
And she's like, hey, where's Sydney?
Right. Yeah.
And Rob's just like, she's at the baseball tournament.
Right.
I don't know if they were just reminding viewers of why she's not in this episode.
Yeah, so anyway, Maggie goes to the store and talks to Jackson and reveals that she knows about his parents splitting up. These two have only known each other for a short time, right?
Yeah.
Is it really appropriate for her to be oh, hey, I heard your parents are splitting up? That's awfully personal. I don't know that I would have approached it like this. Maybe I would have taken a different tack where I would have been like, so hey, Jackson, I'm here for you if you need me, and just left it at that. If he wanted to discuss it with you, then he would have.
Yeah.
And otherwise, let it be.
Sure, but it gave a chance for them to talk about when her parents split up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we got confirmation, which we had kind of speculated before, that she'd only come back once to see her dad, And it was when she was in high school. So this is that when she was 15 thing that we still don't know the details of. But she left when she was younger, came back one summer when she was 15. And what she tells us is it didn't go well, and she left. And we know clearly that had something to do with Lola.
Oh, speaking of which, so this is one of the positives of this episode, getting to know Jackson a little bit more. And, seeing him a little bit more and characterizing him a little bit more. This actually points back to the last episode where he had a problem with his father talking about inclusivity of the police department.
Okay.
I don't think that was his actual problem. I think his problem was actually talking about his mother at all, given the problems that the two of them were having, and the fact that they were getting divorced.
Yeah.
That was his issue.
I had thought they were already long separated for the fact that last week we were talking about, who he was staying with and all that.
Right.
I didn't get the sense then that it was a new development.
But I guess it was, and I guess that was why he reacted the way he did to his father talking about his mother at all at the time. I don't think it had anything to do with commenting on the inclusivity of the police department now after giving it this episode. So Jackson takes off to go sign guests up for rock climbing. Cal comes in and they end up talking talking about what happened. They flirt some and then we cut to Jack.
He offers help fix the refrigerator.
Oh, yeah, the refrigerator. Ooh.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in a bit. But Jackson happens to upon these two campers. There's this guy who has his son.
Okay, so the dad is Nathan. Now, he's credited on IMDb as Nathan Meyer, played by Josh McDonald.
Okay.
And we meet his son, Caleb. Caleb is credited as Caleb Mayer. So one of those last names is spelled wrong, I'm assuming, on IMDb.
Right.
And he's played by Callum McDonald.
Now, there seems to be like an instant attraction there, at least on Jackson's part.
Oh, yeah, Jackson definitely has a crush. I fully picked up on that.
Yeah, he immediately seems to be totally
So I don't know if these two actors are real life father and son or related to each other, but they both have the last name McDonald. Their real life last names matched, but not their character last names, which I thought was strange.
Yeah, that
again, IMDb's been a little wacky in this episode, though, so who knows? But both local Nova Scotian talent. And I looked at their IMDb's, and I didn't know anything specific, but they've been in some of these same productions that we have seen over and over again on all of our Nova Scotian people that we now follow.
So Cal and Maggie fix the fridge successfully. So to recap here, Maggie has now saved Frank's life, successfully played hostage negotiator.
Yeah, got the gun away from
rescued Chelsea. Yeah. And she's now fixed the fridge.
She's fixed the fridge. So I thought it was funny. Cal offered to fix the fridge, but when we come back, Maggie's doing all of the work.
And Cal is
reading the directions off of his phone. This reminds me a lot of my husband. Was it last week we were playing games and he was trying to look up the rules?
Yeah.
And he's like just telling me how to do something like after it was too late to tell me.
Right.
That's like exactly what was happening here.
Yeah, we were playing that Commodore 64 thing that he bought, and it was like the Olympic Games, which I don't ever want to play that again.
No, that was horrible.
that was not fun. So all right, Kayla's.
So Maggie fixed the fridge.
Right.
Cal offered to do it, and Maggie did it, and Cal lost points for me there because you didn't actually fix shit, Cal.
Right. But hey, he looked up the directions. On how to do it.
They work together.
Yes.
They work together.
Well, Kayla's father comes in.
Yeah,
Nathan, looking for fishing gear, and Maggie is also a fishing expert, as it turns out.
Yeah, even though she hasn't done it since she was 15.
Right. So that whole Mary Sue thing that I was talking about, I think it applies.
Okay.
Okay, so Cal is impressed by this, and Cal suggests that they go fishing, but Maggie has to tend to the store.
Right. And we also learned that Caleb's off to college in the fall.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like, I don't know, that might come back since it looks like this is going to be a love interest for Jackson.
Aw. Maggie gets a call from someone for Sully and takes a message. Sully comes in. He's impressed that the fridge is fixed. And then she reveals that she got a message from a Mr. Blake about his appointment, that she has to change it and move it up. Or that he has to change it and move it up.
Wants to see Sully today instead of whenever they were supposed to meet.
So, just for the record, that's an evidence of me being bad at pronouns in the opposite direction. So... She asks about it, and he testily says none of her business.
Right, but it was pretty clear to me that this is the bank.
Right.
Like, that seemed very obvious.
I mean, it's obvious to you because you've been watching the episodes and following along. Maggie's
not following the plot. I've said that many times.
Right.
She's missing the context clues around her. She's too busy, I guess, doing everything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, she's been busy, like, saving people from the police, fighting aliens, being the captain of the Starship Enterprise, anything else you want to name, too. So Sully ends up meeting with the banker.
Yeah, Mr. Blake, played by Jan Joseph. And I had actually seen this actor had made a social media post talking about how they're filming season 2. So we're not done with this character.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so Sully wants another extension, but the banker says he needs to make good on the payments or else. The best he can do is another month.
Yeah, the end of next month, he said. So the end of July, that would be, because we're in June as far as we know.
Sully ends up getting pissed and ends up leaving. Maggie calls Andrew, and again, he has to go.
And again, it doesn't feel quite right to me.
But he suggests a virtual dinner date.
A virtual dinner date tonight, but I am going to note they didn't set a time or any details. They were just like, let's have dinner together later.
Right. Okay. Sully comes in pissed off. We know why, but Maggie doesn't. She decides to go fishing with Cal. Cal is as good a fisherman as I am. Not at all.
Yeah, he like almost gets hurt with the hook.
Yeah, basically, back in the day when I was trying to do it, I would catch trees or get my lure tangled. And in one specific instance, somebody caught me in the back. and that did not feel good. I would not recommend that.
But she was very helpful.
Yep.
Very, very helpful for someone who has not done this since she was a kid.
Right. So meanwhile, they flirt some more. Sully is crunching numbers back at the store.
Yeah, he's going over the books.
Lola comes in acting upset.
She's really upset. She's overwhelmed.
She's saying that she has to pay for this, for that.
Yeah, the doctor said Roy needs a full-time care. She can't afford it. She can't even afford to put up handrails in the tub.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you should be nicer to Maggie. But Sully basically just writes out a check and gives it to her.
Yeah, she protests and is like, that's not what I came here for, but whatever, she takes it anyway.
So, I'm wondering why Sully is having financial problems if he's just constantly giving his money away.
Yeah.
He can't afford this.
Absolutely.
He needs to be sending this money to the bank if he wants to save this place. And I'm starting to think that Lola is actually the secret villain of this piece. Like, I think she might actually be evil person.
I mean, I've made no sense to hide the fact that I don't like Lola.
I mean, I don't think you're really supposed to, but Maggie and Cal continue to fish, and Maggie ends up managing to catch something.
Catches a big fish.
Cal gets cut in the process of trying to get it off the hook, and Maggie tends to the wound. And now here Maggie is stitching up Cal after getting wounded.
At least that's her job.
I mean, yes. That at least makes sense. Maggie says he thinks he will be okay. No stitches or anything. We're not going to have to amputate. I'm waiting for the subplot where his hand goes gangrene because she screwed it up and he ends up suing, but that's besides the point.
She said she needs to head back, and he invites her to share the fish with him for dinner.
And Maggie agrees to it, and Cal says, an hour in his cabin. Or an hour.
Meet me in an hour
right.
at my cabin.
Right. Maggie and Sully talk. She's concerned about him, thinks that his problem is Frank, that he's worried about him.
Yeah, and she says he should talk to somebody, a therapist.
He doesn't want to do that because he's an old school guy. He doesn't want to deal
And
with
he also offers her a sandwich. She says no thanks. She has dinner plans twice over now, Maggie. You have dinner plans twice over.
Right. You know, it'd be a little awkward if their dinner date was involved Cal at the same time. Probably that's not the threesome you should be going for. But, all right, the lawyer calls her and says her deposition has been scheduled for a couple weeks from now.
And you would have expected that to be a little more precise, too. It's in a few weeks. It's scheduled.
Right. It'd be nice if we could get, like, a date on that. I mean, you would expect Maggie to at least ask, oh, okay, when?
Right. All of their chats are very brief.
Right. Cal fries up the fish. Maggie joins him. I have her written in my notes, and I do that all throughout my notes this week. They share a beer. Maggie fills Cal in on, what the whole situation is with the lawsuit.
They're drinking wine, actually.
Oh, are they? I just saw it was a
bottle. Cal brought out a bottle of wine, so he definitely sees this as a date.
Now, she takes care of one of my problems with this whole lawsuit situation in mentioning that lawsuits are fairly common. Right. It just happens to be her first one.
Right. So she's just not really sure how to deal with it.
And, okay, that fully takes care of any criticism I've had on that matter. So where was I in my notes? Okay, Cal reveals that he was a lawyer as a defense attorney. He's out here to get some perspective, and Cal offers to help prepare her for the type of questions he'll ask. He says that he can't give her any legal advice, which I have a friend who happens to be a lawyer, Tim Rizell, and he said the exact same thing to me, that he is not allowed to offer legal advice.
Right.
Andrew ends up calling. She left her cell phone back at the house, and he's like, what happened to our date?
Yeah.
And
again, I'll point out, they never actually set a time or... I mean, she did seem to forget, so that's on her, but they never set a time, and he blew her off twice today, so I'm not mad at Maggie about this.
No.
Although, you shouldn't have left your cell phone at home.
Yeah,
that's
weird. I don't understand why she did that. Maybe she just did that by accident.
Yeah, but still, like, I can't imagine, like, just not having my phone.
You know,
you're out in the woods, like...
Also, she's a doctor, so she should be used to having that kind of stuff on her at all times. Right. It should give her anxiety to be away from it. Meanwhile, Maggie is impressed with Cal's cooking skills. Cal says he's tired.
Okay, so a song comes on the radio.
Oh, is that what he was reacting to?
A song came on the radio. It was The Best Thing by Paper Planes. And Maggie says she loves this song. But it seemed to trigger something in Cal. I watched this a few times. I definitely think it was the song that triggered Cal.
Yeah, I was wondering what his mood
was. All of a sudden, he was like, I need to call it a night. He basically kicks Maggie out. She leaves looking very confused.
Right. I think maybe she thought she was going to get lucky.
I mean, they were having a good time. I at least thought they would hang out longer.
Right, yeah.
Like, they didn't even finish cleaning their plates. And he's like, okay, bye. It really looked to me like he was reacting to the song. And especially because they made a point of the song was playing in the scene. It wasn't playing over the scene.
Gotcha.
So I think it was that song. It's a romance song. I'm guessing there's something in his past that we're yet to learn about.
Right. Yep, you recovered there very nicely.
Words today, my goodness.
I mean, words are always a problem for me, and that's a terrible affliction for somebody who wants to do a podcast. But people still listen to me and us, so I think we're okay.
I think they listen just to hear how ridiculous we sound.
Okay, so if you're listening and you're in the comments, please let us know if that is in fact true. All right, so Sully's crunching numbers again, and his bills are all overdue, including his phone bill.
Yeah, it doesn't look good.
He's frustrated. Sully calls the bank and says he wants to open a line of credit, and he's leaving a message. Okay, he already has a loan with the bank.
Okay, so, yeah, the first time I watched this, I thought he was leaving a message for Mr. Blake, the guy he met with.
That's not what he said?
It wasn't. He said it's Mr. Phillips is who he's leaving a message with. He said, hey, it's me. I don't know who Mr. Phillips is. A different bank?
Right.
That's my guess, this is a competing bank.
So he has a loan at one bank, and he's trying to take out a line of credit on another?
At the other bank.
Is that going to work?
Pay off the first bank? I mean, credit card transfers, it's a thing. But the point is, he's way over his head in debt right now.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, the first time I listened to that, like the first time I watched, I was like, you're asking for a line of credit at the place that just said they're going to foreclose on you?
Right, exactly. I was way confused by that.
But also, like, the banks all know each other's business.
Not to mention, if you're behind on your bills, that's going to impact your credit, and they're definitely going to notice that you're overdue on a loan.
Yeah, so I want to know exactly who Mr. Phillips is. Yeah. Because he was like, hey, it's me again. Mm-hmm. So I think there's more to this. Of course, that's what seems to happen in this show, is we don't get all the details at once.
I think they're going to end up doing, like, some kind of, like, GoFundMe.
There's going to be a huge fundraiser. Right. I called that right from, like, the first episode. I think I said that. Yeah. They're going to have some huge fundraiser. Rob's going to cook all the food. They're going to... Maggie's going to help, because I'm sure her mom has, done plenty of, like, hospital banquet fundraisers that she's been involved with.
Threaten people with bats, who are drinking too much.
Yeah, we're going to have this big fundraiser and save the day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure. Since episode 1, I thought that was where we were going as soon as we started seeing piles of bills.
Yeah, you definitely don't see that for no reason.
I mean, the thing here is, where we are is Sully is too proud to tell anybody he's in trouble or ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Edna doesn't even know. She's constantly like, oh, he's too cheap to replace these appliances.
Right.
She obviously doesn't know. The problem is there is no money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because he's too cheap to spend it. It's because it's not here.
But he can still write checks to Lola for random emergency stuff.
And that also shows, maybe Maggie has a reason for her jealousy. Like, maybe he has been too much help for Lola in her life.
Right.
And why is he so helpful to Lola that it's hurting him?
I was almost taking that as perhaps he's that generous in general. Like, maybe he's too generous with the people around him in general, not just Lola.
I mean, I think that's true to some extent.
Yeah. But, I mean, if it's just Lola, that's a serious issue.
Yeah, and again, maybe that child, that missing or dead child that we just imagined. And I think I said this, last week, one of the weeks I said it, that I had questioned if that was a child with Lola's mother. So maybe that child's Lola's sibling. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I can't wait for next week when Maggie investigates a series of homicides and,
I didn't actually see
takes down a drug empire and
usually
so on and so forth.
I see the trailer, and I didn't see it this time.
No, I didn't even
I haven't seen it. So, I don't know what's coming. I'm going to guess more love triangle. Cal and Maggie are going to get closer. Things are going to get more tense with Andrew. Sully's going to maybe admit to someone that he's in trouble.
Maybe. I mean, eventually he's going to have to.
I'm going to guess Frank comes home from the hospital and we act like it never happened.
Probably. So here's my thing. If you didn't want to actually do that story and they dispense with it really quickly, why even go that way with the story in the first place?
Maybe it'll come back and be more.
Okay.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows?
But I mean, as it stands, like, if you didn't want to deal with that story, then why tell that story? Like, why end the episode that way? Why not just stick with the low-key slice of life drama series that it's been?
We already had, like, there's a missing kid.
Right. But I don't know. I don't think that bothers me as much as... No, I think that sort of bothers me too. But, like, just dispensing with it in 15 minutes of this episode just doesn't make sense. Like, it should have been an episode.
Again, I feel like... I don't know. I feel like the episodes aren't cut the way they were meant to be. I feel like we're getting things in other episodes that were meant to be in other episodes.
Gotcha.
And I don't know why it feels that way. Like, I don't, something feels off with the way the episodes are split.
Right. Well, do we have anything else to say about this episode? Did I beat up on this episode too much?
Well, I don't think too much.
No?
And I don't know if we ever said that on this podcast. It's something we bring up a lot on our other podcasts. We are sometimes overly critical from a place of love.
Oh, absolutely.
We just find enjoyment in nitpicking sometimes.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that we're not enjoying the things that we are talking about. Obviously, we're enjoying them, or we wouldn't take up big chunks of our life sitting here talking about them.
Right, exactly.
So we are loving this story. I think all of the acting in this show is great.
Oh, yeah,
I don't really have any acting criticism so far.
Everybody's pretty good. It was good to see more of Jackson in this episode and getting to know him a little bit more than we had previously. We saw him a little bit last week, but we got to see him a little bit more this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him.
Yeah, we didn't have Lindora this week with Sydney. Mm-hmm. We got very little from Connie and Rafe this week.
Frank was unconscious for most of the episode.
Yeah, very little Frank. We actually got very little Edna.
Right. And she
two key scenes, but they were short.
She should have been more central for this episode in my mind. But that goes to the criticism I have of the episode as a whole.
I mean, there are a lot of characters in this cast.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like they do need to focus their stories a little better.
Yeah.
And if you're going to include everybody, have them all revolved around something and focus on one person's story, one group of people's story.
Now, I thought last week with the backdrop of the land blessing ceremony, that worked fairly well. like as an ensemble piece. That was done pretty well. This week, a little bit less so. It was the episode lacked focus, really.
I mean, even that episode description that you read
is all over the place.
It was all over the place.
Right.
It wasn't even going chronologically. It was like, this happens, and then that happens. But wait, this other thing happened first.
Right, yeah.
Like, even, like, whoever wrote that description didn't know how to describe the episode.
All right. Anything else to say?
Nope. We're going to have episode 5 airing soon,
yes.
And then we'll cover that, and I look forward to where the heck they're going with this.
You know, something I should have mentioned at the top. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween.
We're recording this on Halloween.
Yes, and I'm really surprised. My husband's upstairs on door duty, and I didn't hear any knocks on the door.
Yep, no interruption of our podcast as we tried to record, so that's good. All right, Stacie, can be reached at?
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as ourselves. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.